They made her wait for nearly 2 hours in a cold reception area, surrounded by people who walked past her as if she were invisible. Nobody knew that the woman sitting quietly in the corner, clutching a simple brown handbag and wearing an inexpensive gray coat, was the owner of the very company they were so proud to work for. And nobody could have imagined that before the day ended, the way they treated her would change the company forever. Rain tapped against the enormous glass windows of Sterling and Vale Industries as Elena Carter stepped through the revolving doors. She did not arrive in a luxury car. She did not have an assistant carrying a leather briefcase behind her. She did not announce her name to the receptionist or demand immediate attention. She simply walked in, shook the rain from her umbrella, and approached the front desk with a polite smile. Her appearance was deliberately ordinary. The gray coat had belonged to her late mother. Her shoes were comfortable rather than fashionable, and her dark hair was tied loosely behind her neck. She looked like someone who had come to apply for a job, deliver documents, or perhaps ask about an unpaid invoice. That was exactly how she wanted to be seen. If you believe that kindness should never depend on someone's clothes, money, position, or appearance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Sometimes a second chance begins with something as simple as treating a stranger with dignity. Elena had spent the previous 6 months away from Sterling and Vale. 6 months earlier, she had inherited the controlling shares of the company after her father, Richard Carter, died unexpectedly. He had built the company from a small machinery workshop into a multinational manufacturing business employing more than 2,000 people. But Elena had never been interested in standing behind a giant desk and signing papers. Her father had always told her that the most important thing he owned was not the company. It was the people inside it. After his death, Elena became the majority owner, but she refused to immediately reveal herself to the employees. She wanted to understand what the company had become without her father's presence. She wanted to see how ordinary employees were treated when executives believed nobody important was watching. So she arranged for the board to continue operating normally while she traveled under her mother's surname, Elena Carter, with only a handful of trusted legal advisors aware of her identity. On that rainy morning, she had come to conduct one final test before making major decisions about the company. The receptionist barely looked up when Elena approached. Her name was Vanessa, a young woman with perfect makeup and an expensive phone lying beside her keyboard. Elena politely explained that she had an appointment with the Human Resources Department regarding an internal administrative matter. Vanessa checked the computer, frowned, and told her there was no appointment listed under that name. Elena explained that the meeting had been arranged through a private office and might not appear in the ordinary system. Vanessa sighed impatiently and asked Elena to sit down. Elena thanked her and took a seat. 20 minutes passed. Then 40. People came and went through the lobby. Executives hurried toward elevators while employees laughed beside the coffee machine. Several people glanced at Elena but quickly looked away. At one point, an assistant carrying a stack of folders nearly bumped into her and muttered that she was sitting in the wrong place. Elena moved her chair without complaint. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. The lobby grew quieter as lunch approached. Elena watched Vanessa answer calls, scroll through her phone, and occasionally whisper to another receptionist. Not once did anyone ask if Elena needed water. Not once did anyone apologize for the delay. Finally, an elderly security guard named Samuel approached her. He had noticed her sitting there for a long time. He carried a small paper cup of tea and placed it gently beside her. He told her the building was always cold when it rained and offered her his spare scarf. Elena smiled with genuine gratitude. She refused the scarf but accepted the tea. Samuel then apologized for how long she had been waiting, even though the situation had nothing to do with him. That small act touched Elena more deeply than he could have known. She asked him how long he had worked there. Samuel explained that he had been with Sterling and Vale for almost 27 years. He had watched the building grow, watched executives come and go, and remembered when Richard Carter used to walk through the factory floor without an entourage. Elena listened carefully. Samuel lowered his voice and said that things had changed since Richard died. The company was still profitable, but some people had forgotten that employees were human beings. He told her that many workers were afraid to complain because certain managers had become powerful. Elena thanked him and asked whether he believed the company could return to what it once was. Samuel looked toward the elevators and quietly said that companies could recover from bad numbers, but they rarely recovered from losing their humanity. Those words stayed with Elena. 2 hours after she arrived, Vanessa finally called HR and discovered that the appointment had indeed been scheduled. The mistake had not been Elena's. Someone in the executive office had failed to enter the meeting properly. Vanessa looked embarrassed but did not apologize. Instead, she told Elena that someone would come down when they were available. Elena was escorted upstairs by an HR assistant named Marcus, who appeared nervous. He took her into a small conference room rather than an executive office. Elena immediately noticed something strange. The room had no working heating, and the blinds were broken. Marcus apologized and said the executive conference rooms were reserved for senior management. Elena smiled gently and told him it was fine. During the meeting, she asked ordinary questions. She wanted to know how employees were treated when they made mistakes. She asked whether workers felt safe reporting harassment or unfair treatment. She asked how managers were promoted and whether customer complaints were taken seriously. Marcus hesitated before answering. He admitted that many employees were unhappy. Several people had resigned because of a senior executive named Victor Hale, the company's chief operating officer. Victor had joined the company 2 years earlier and had quickly gained control over most daily operations. He was known for demanding results and humiliating people who failed to meet his expectations. Elena asked why the board had not addressed the complaints. Marcus looked uncomfortable. He explained that Victor had delivered record profits and therefore received considerable protection from investors. Elena understood immediately. Her father had always warned her that numbers could hide terrible things. Later that afternoon, Elena walked through the company cafeteria. She sat alone at a table and observed employees during lunch. She saw factory workers eating quickly before returning to their shifts. She saw a young woman quietly crying over a phone message. She saw another employee helping an older colleague carry a tray. Then she noticed a notice board covered with anonymous complaints. Most were about unpaid overtime, unfair schedules, bullying, and managers refusing to listen. Elena photographed every page. She was no longer testing the company. She was investigating it. That evening, Elena returned home and placed her mother's old gray coat on a chair. She remembered her father's final conversation with her before his death. He had told her that ownership meant responsibility, not privilege. He had said that if she ever became the person with the power to change something, she should never use that power to make people afraid of her. She should use it to make people feel safe. The next morning, Elena returned to Sterling and Vale. This time, she did not come alone. Her legal advisor, Daniel Brooks, waited outside the building with several documents. Elena told him she was ready. Daniel asked whether she wanted him to announce her arrival. Elena shook her head. She wanted to see one last thing. They entered the lobby together. Vanessa immediately recognized Elena but did not appear particularly concerned. She simply asked whether Elena had an appointment. Elena smiled and said that she was there to meet the board. Vanessa looked surprised. She asked whether Elena was a supplier. Daniel stepped forward and placed a folder on the reception desk. He told Vanessa that Elena Carter was the majority owner of Sterling and Vale Industries. The lobby became completely silent. Vanessa's face lost its color. Employees stopped walking. The security guard Samuel stood near the elevator, staring in disbelief. Elena did not smile triumphantly. She did not humiliate Vanessa. She simply looked at the young receptionist and said that she hoped Vanessa would remember one thing from yesterday: the person sitting in that chair might always be more important than they appear. Vanessa apologized immediately. Elena accepted the apology. Then she asked where the board meeting was being held. Within minutes, senior executives rushed downstairs. Victor Hale arrived wearing an expensive suit, followed by several directors who had spent years assuming Elena would remain a distant shareholder. Victor's confidence disappeared when Daniel handed him the legal documents proving Elena's ownership. The emergency board meeting began 20 minutes later. Elena entered the room quietly. The executives expected anger. Instead, she placed a stack of printed photographs on the table. The first showed the lobby where she had waited. The second showed the broken conference room. The third showed the anonymous complaints. The fourth showed an employee crying in the cafeteria. Then Elena explained that she had spent 2 days inside her own company without anyone knowing who she was. She had been ignored, dismissed, delayed, and treated as if her time had no value. But she also told them about Samuel. She told them about the cup of tea. She told them that while executives had ignored her, an ordinary security guard had noticed that she was cold. That difference, she said, explained everything. Victor attempted to defend himself. He argued that the company was performing better than ever. He presented financial charts showing record profits. Elena looked at the charts and said that she was proud of the company's success, but no profit margin could justify destroying people's dignity. She then announced that an independent investigation would begin immediately. Victor was removed from his operational position pending investigation. Several managers were suspended. Employees were given confidential channels to report abuse without fear of retaliation. Overtime policies were reviewed. Promotions were audited. A new employee support program was established. But Elena did not stop there. She personally visited the factory floor. She sat with workers. She ate lunch in the cafeteria. She listened to complaints that had been ignored for years. Some employees were suspicious at first. They expected another executive promise that would disappear after a few weeks. But Elena kept returning. Months passed. The company began changing. Not because Elena threatened people. Because she listened. Samuel received a promotion to head of employee safety and training. Marcus was promoted after proving that he had tried to protect employees despite pressure from senior management. Even Vanessa remained at the company. Elena offered her a second chance after Vanessa sincerely apologized and demonstrated that she had learned from the experience. 1 year later, the same lobby looked completely different. The cold reception area had become bright and welcoming. Employees no longer rushed past one another without looking up. A small plaque had been placed near the reception desk honoring employees who demonstrated exceptional kindness. Samuel stood beside it during the ceremony. Elena stood nearby. The plaque carried a simple message: in this company, every person deserves to be seen. Samuel looked at Elena and smiled. She smiled back. She remembered the day she had entered that building wearing her mother's old gray coat. She had been treated like a stranger inside the company she owned. But that painful experience had taught her something no financial report could ever reveal. A company was not its glass walls, expensive offices, or quarterly profits. A company was the tired worker coming home after a 12-hour shift. It was the receptionist answering the 100th phone call of the day. It was the security guard offering tea to someone who looked forgotten. It was the manager choosing patience instead of humiliation. It was the owner remembering that power means nothing if it cannot be used to protect people. Years later, Elena still kept that gray coat. It hung inside her office as a reminder. Not of the day people underestimated her, but of the day she learned that kindness often comes from the person with the least power. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Because Elena had walked into Sterling and Vale expecting to discover whether her company was worthy of her father's legacy. Instead, she discovered something much more important. She discovered that one small act of kindness could expose an entire culture. She discovered that second chances could transform people. And she discovered that sometimes the person you ignore today may be the very person who has the power to change your tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, please don't just watch and move on. Like the video, share it with someone who believes that every person deserves dignity, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more stories about kindness, courage, second chances, and the unexpected ways one good heart can change a life. And before we end, I want you to do something special. Comment, "Everyone deserves to be seen," if you believe that kindness should never depend on someone's clothes, wealth, job, or status. Because in the end, Elena did not change Sterling and Vale by reminding everyone that she was the owner. She changed it by reminding everyone that every person inside those walls mattered. And sometimes, the greatest power a person can have is not the power to make others afraid, but the power to make them feel valued.